So this past Sunday, WWE put on what they called the greatest wrestling match ever between Randy Orton and Edge. Tonight we debate what is really the greatest wrestling match ever. In my opinion, it's Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada, their second match that happened at Dominion 2017, which is actually the anniversary that just happened this past Thursday. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. Welcome to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Ralph, let's get into this conversation. Omega versus Okada 2 was the greatest wrestling match of all time. Do you agree with me?
I'm going to disagree with you, and I'm going to have a really hard time doing it because up until we started recording, I had to go back and forth and really kind of debate what my favorite match of all time was. That match is certainly in the conversation. Actually, if you want my honest opinion, when you talk about Omega and Okada, my personal preference is their first match because I thought the flow of it was a little bit better. I think it had a little more technical wrestling involved in it, which that's really one of the things I like most in professional wrestling. Going back to like when I was watching ECW, I used to watch a lot of Jerry Lynn and RVD type matches, and the chain wrestling and the flow of those matches, especially at the very beginning of them. I used to love that type of wrestling. The match that I personally think is the best match I've personally ever seen is Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker from WrestleMania 25. When you talk about storytelling at the grandest stage of them all at WrestleMania 25 at such a big event, while there's a handful of other matches I could throw up there as the greatest one, in my opinion, that is the best one I've ever seen.
I just watched both of these matches because I knew we were going to talk about them. Kazuchika Okada versus Omega, like you said, the first one was a great one. That's the one that originally broke the Meltzer scale. So you already got a lot of pressure there. It already broke the scale once. How could it go on top the second time around? And I think it really did. I think the story that was told in the ring was amazing. Kazuchika Okada is saying that his biggest challenger, his toughest challenger, was Kenny Omega. You got Kenny Omega saying that he never got the one-wing angel on Kazuchika Okada, and if he could get it on him, it's over. He's going to win. Then they spend the next 60 minutes blow to blow, splashes, rainmakers, V-triggers. They beat the hell out of each other in that 60 minutes. And not only that, you also had that drama where Cody comes in with the towel. And that was a spot that I totally forgot about now that I'm watching it again. You got Cody trying to throw in the towel. And that kind of plays into effect now because we saw that in All Elite Wrestling not too far ago when he looked like he was going to throw in the towel for Dustin, his brother, against Lance Archer. It was just amazing, all the different things that happened in that match. And to me, like Undertaker and Shawn, they told an amazing story themselves. You got the best guy putting on WrestleMania match after WrestleMania match after WrestleMania match, Shawn Michaels, against the man that has the streak. And they went blow to blow. They had their spots, their false finishes. Both of them were amazing. But the reason why I say Okada versus Omega was better, that was the main event that night at Dominion. And on top of that, it was a 5-hour-long show. So before that match even started, it was 4 hours in. And you expect the crowd to be lively for another hour? Here in WWE, if you go to WrestleMania, you're tired out by halfway through WrestleMania. And that's a, 5.5-hour show if you're not counting the kickoff?
Yeah.
Omega and Okada went Broadway. After a 4-hour show already, made it a 5-hour show. And that crowd was hot till the end. And it build and build and build. It wasn't just pop at the beginning and then kind of died. No. The crowd just was in it more and more and more. Honestly, I disagree with you as far as the flow. They hit the 30-minute mark. I thought it was only 10 minutes into the match.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the flow of the match was bad by any means or any standard. I just said, me personally, what I like in professional wrestling, I like their first match rather than their second one. Now, it's interesting you bring up the points you just brought up because when I was coming onto this to record it, like I said, it really was down to the last minute because I watched both the matches and I finished up the second Omega Okada match right before we started recording. So I was prepared to come on here thinking that we were going to go back and forth saying, I was going to tell you that I thought Shawn and Undertaker was better. And I thought I was going to have to rescind on that and go back on what I was originally going to say, because one of the things that was going through my mind is exactly kind of what you pointed out. So Shawn and Taker was such a special match because of what was going into it before the match even started. So you have two of the biggest stars ever in professional wrestling at the grandest stage of them all, like I said, in the biggest company, especially at that time when there really was no competition for WWE, at the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania, when the streak was very much alive and Shawn Michaels was very much established as Mr. WrestleMania. Let's say, for example, we switch roles and we say Undertaker and Shawn Michaels never wrestled in America. They were only wrestling in Japan. And somebody from America watches that match. It may not have meant as much. So when you strip all of that away, and Okada and Omega meant a lot, especially that match, like because of all the things you said. But if you strip away what the Undertaker means to WrestleMania, if you strip away what Shawn Michaels means to WrestleMania, if you strip away what they both mean to the legacy of WrestleMania and the WWE, does it still stand the test of time? That was really kind of the thing that I had to debate, because at the level of fundamentally, this is a wrestling match and that's a wrestling match. I think if you just compare them for the matches themselves, Okada and Omega might actually be better. But I don't think you can necessarily take that away from it. The other thing you can't take away from it, of course, is that Jim Ross is on commentary. And we talk about this all the time. To me, one of the most iconic moments I've ever seen in WrestleMania was Shawn Michaels kicking out of the tombstone, which very rarely, I don't even know if it happened before that, but before kicking out of finishers really became a thing, that happened when nobody was kicking out of the tombstone. So that really helped establish that match and bring it to that next level, especially when you had Jim Ross on commentary saying, I just had an out-of-body experience, and just the look when the camera hands in on the Undertaker, who's supposed to be this dead man, emotionless, and the amount of emotion that he expressed on his face in that moment. So, all of those things taken into consideration. Again, I'm not taking anything away from Okada and Omega. That's one of my favorite matches. And when you talk about feuds, it's probably the better feud, in my opinion. Both great matches and meant a lot for the companies as far as legacy and where they are now.
Yeah, and let's just think about this. The thing that happens with Omega and Okada, obviously the first match has got everybody talking because it broke Meltzer's scale, the first 6-star match, even though I'm pretty sure he gave 6-star matches before this, but people ran with it as the first one to ever do it. And then they top it off again and have this match. And you bring up the spot where the Undertaker kicked out and he has that stare and Jim Ross calls, I just had an out-of-body experience. That's a great spot. It's great camera work, great storytelling, great drama. But when it comes to possibly the best spot in any wrestling match I've ever watched, heading down to the final 5 minutes, it looks like Okada's finally got Omega in the Rainmaker. He's going to hit that one last Rainmaker to close it out, and that's it. And Omega collapsed.
Yep.
That, to me, was just icing on the cake for this match. That right there is what solidifies this as the greatest wrestling match ever. Now, I know WWE wants to say it's Randy Orton versus Edge, and that was a great match. And what goes into a great match is the storytelling, the wrestling moves, the fact that you could keep yourself engaged from bell to bell. I think that match did it. And Shawn and Taker did that, but I don't think the crowd was as invested in that match as they were with Okada and Omega. I think there was just a little bit more in the crowd interaction because you felt like this move is going to do it. That move is going to do it. And it just didn't happen.
I think both of the matches certainly had elements where, they were kicking out of each other's finishers, especially when you talk about Omega and Okada when he hit the one-winged angel, and all of the drama towards the last 15 minutes of that match was just absolutely amazing. And they were very similar. I mean, granted, Undertaker and Shawn was probably maybe at most 25, 26 minutes. I'm not really quite sure off the top of my head. So yeah, Okada and Omega certainly went longer, but I think they were similar matches in the sense that you had one dominant force, that they were obviously had an underdog who was trying to triumph over that guy that was just unbeatable. Okada was the guy that was unbeatable in the Omega Okada match, and you had the Undertaker, who obviously with the streak and everything else, that was really kind of like his prime, and that really set forward like a really good run for the Undertaker as far as really good matches going forward from that point. But I really don't think there's a wrong answer here. I think that there's actually a few other matches you could probably consider as the greatest ever. And I think the reason we're probably having this conversation right now is because WWE billed the main event last night as greatest match ever. And then you had, obviously the anniversary of the epic Okada Omega match.
Whatever your answer is, whether it is Okada Omega, one of those four, whether it is one of the two from Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker at WrestleMania, whether it was even Randy Orton and Edge at Backlash, maybe it was Ric Flair versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. There's no wrong answer, like you said. It's very subjective, but I think what we just debated here, easily, I think in a lot of people's conversations, have as one or two, I think, in my opinion. I don't know how many people would not say one of those two matches, if you watch them, would not be in your top two. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I got to agree. And if they're not in your top two, they're probably within many people's top 10.
So let us know what you think is the greatest wrestling match ever in the comments below. Don't forget to share us all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. And for news, reviews, and conversations on all things pro wrestling, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. For Al Valenti, my name is Michael Valenti. Thank you for watching the Squared Circle Psychobabble.